Hello, we are live here, all the way from the United Kingdom and Netherlands. My name is Temitope Olodo. I'm the CEO of Trans Intelligence and Security Solution Limited, and we have a lot in stock for you today. So if you're watching me right now, I want you to like this page. I want you to share this page. I want you to tell your friends at home and abroad that we're live talking about safety and security in our home. And I've got with me, of course, the veteran. When we're talking about safety and security, I'm talking about one and the one and only, Mr. Roland Stockton. Thank you so much. Introduce yourself to whoever is joining us for the first time.
I beg your pardon, Timmy.
I said, speak to the audience.
Oh, speak to the audience. Of course, I love speaking to the audience. Hi, everybody. Here we are. It's a windy, cold, rainy, wet autumn day in the Netherlands. So I'll be going to the beach later. So there we go. The winter is knocking at the door, as you say. But yes, when it comes to security in TRAS, we have a portfolio full of lessons on security, be it for companies, for individual security, personal security, private security in your home, and of course, commercial and industry security. Lots and lots of lessons. So today, when I'm chatting with you, I'll be drawing on the different parts of those lessons to give you an overview. And of course, as ever, if you want to either for yourselves individually, for your families, for your colleagues at work, you want to do some training in any aspect of physical security, then please drop a line to the office. You'll see the email coming up in a moment. And of course, we'll reach out to you and assist you in a variety of ways. So again, this is my Saturday treat for myself. I like to come up here and chat to you all. And of course, it means my wife can't give me jobs to do. So if we can drag this on
yes, we're not telling her. She's not going to know. That's the trick. That's the reason why we're here for you guys. And if you're watching us right now, I want you to like this page. I want you to share this page, and I want you to tell your friends home and abroad that we're live now talking about safety at home. Very sadly, one of our very top global artists in Africa, by the name Davido, known to so many, around the world, lost a son to a tragic accident, in a swimming pool in his house. Of course, the loss of a child is very, very serious, and parents take it as a personal, they take it very personal when things like that happen, to a little child. And my condolence to him. I know that every time that he sits down and he doesn't hear the voice of that little baby, calling dada and coming, it will really be sad for him. But we could all learn from some of the mistakes that were there, and we could, of course, because we're talking about safety at home, or one of another very popular artist, actor in Nigeria, fell in his bathroom and hit his head, of course, and he did not survive it. So many accidents like that in the home, which is meant to be our safe space. But it's like a dog. A home is like a dog that you give the treat and you take care of. If you don't take care of your dog, it could end up biting you. So if you don't take care of your home and make your home safe, it could become an hazard, not only affecting you, but affecting your neighbors and affecting the community. So we're going to talk about it because there are three layers. There is the home safety and security. And just like you said in one of the articles, which we have published, I believe we have published it already, is that, you want your house to be a fortress, you want your house to be a home, but not just a fortress, and I wanted you to explain that phrase, and for our viewers, about having a home which is a beautiful home, a home you could live in, but you don't want it to be too much of a fortress that you can't really enjoy it. So can you explain that phrase for some of our listeners?
Yes, I'll deal with that first, Temi, and again, condolences for the two people you just mentioned. It's a tragic thing, like what happened in India with the tragic loss of those infants in a hospital ward.
Yeah.
Any child's death affects us all. It doesn't matter where the child is, where the child's from. It, I think, has a greater impact on everybody when it's a child, and I'll touch upon children a little bit later. But yeah, that saying, of course, an Englishman's home is his castle.
Yes.
Of course, that's universal, and it's not just directed at Anglo-Saxon culture, but all cultures, and of course for ladies and for gentlemen. So just to expand on that, I have actually some footage which I show in one of the lessons. And when I first saw this footage, I was totally amazed. Let me explain. It shows, I think it's a South African policeman. As I recall the uniform, it suggested a South African policeman to me. And he has took one of the criminals they've caught, a burglar, and he's saying to the audience, he's explaining to them, I want you to watch what this man can do. Let me give you a context here, folks. You may have seen, when you see these shows on TV, magicians, and you'll get the person who will come on with a suitcase, and you're all looking at the suitcase and you're thinking, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then out of what looks like a relatively small suitcase, when they open it, somebody will emerge, because they're very subtle and they've got all this dexterity and so on and so forth. And of course, we're all amazed. Well, I was in a similar way amazed when I saw this guy. They took him to a house, and on the outside of the downstairs windows, they had bars on the windows. And of course, you looked at it, and unless you were aware of what some people can do, you would say, yeah, that's 100% safe. And then the guy, he got into the house through the bars because he was so supple. He was not a bodybuilder sort of guy, like Temi. You can see Temi there, Mr. Universe. Not like that at all. No, he was like a waif and stray sort of build, very light, more like a sprinter than a wrestler, and very supple. And I watched this guy stepping through these bars and maneuvering his way in. And this was lesson number one for you, everybody. Always have at the back of your mind that your security won't necessarily be 100%. Okay? Always bear that in mind. It will never, ever be 100% unless you take an active role in learning about security. Again, when I was looking at this, it was totally amazing. So there is I did a course in criminology, and there's a course, part of the course, it's where you look at making your house burglar proof while it's being built, built-in security. So again, this is an important aspect, as when you're designing a house, or if you're living in a house, it's what do you do to make it more secure? And nobody wants to live in a prison. We want to live in a home that's a nice environment and so on and so forth. But by being a little bit creative, thinking outside the box laterally, you do not have to have bars on your window to make your windows very difficult to get into. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. So an Englishman's home is his castle, but never ever believe that unless you took active measures, you're going to be safe. And we look at different aspects of doors, windows, so on and so forth. But I when I was looking at this, and then I did a little bit more delving, and it's surprising how many burglars, who can be very young people, can gain entry to a house through a very small window, like a toilet window. They can
Yeah.
get in there. Skinny little kids, teenagers, or whatever, or people with a small build can get in there. And we look at this when we go through today's chat about different sorts of things to think about when we're making our home as safe as we possibly can.
Thank you so much. And when you touched on that, it's quite interesting. There's another video like that circulating, um, definitely in Nigeria and some other African countries. Well, I wanted let's talk about um, more with regard to safety, because the kitchen is a very, very nice place because that's where we get our food. Without food, we can't survive. But we also know it could be a potential hazard environment for little kids. And I
Yes.
wanted you to highlight maybe two or three things that parents and people watching us now could do to make the kitchen a safe place for younger ones in the home.
Yeah. Well, of course, they say the kitchen is the heart of the home, and like the heart of the home, it beats merrily away, and everybody sort of focuses in the kitchen. But not only for children, but let's talk about children first. What are children? Well, they're small adults, but they don't have the maturity, the knowledge, the expertise of adults. But they are curious and inquisitive, and they want to emulate, they want to copy what they see the mum doing, the dad doing, the big brother or sister doing, auntie, uncle doing, grandparents doing. They like to copy what they see happening around them. When you look under a kitchen sink, for example, where people store a lot of stuff, bleach and cleaning agents and so on and so forth, to you, you can see they're hazardous, they're dangerous. And we'll touch upon that later from an adult point of view. But to a child, what does a child see? He sees a lot of plastic bottles. And what also does he see in plastic bottles? Well, he sees milk when or she or the child sees milk in a bottle when they're being fed milk, perhaps toddlers, 2 or 3 years old. I'm not an expert on children, by the way. But whenever they're being bottle fed, they will look at bottles and say, yeah, that's something that's nice. Or maybe they look at bottles and think, oh, you get fizzy drinks, soft drinks in bottles. But the shape of these bottles, what we see as bottles and all the different vibrant colors and everything, what are they to a child? They're toys. There's something to be picked up and sniffed and felt and play with. And for a child, bleach means nothing. Caustic means nothing. It's just a pretty colored bottle. So think about where you store these chemicals and so on, maybe out of the reach of a child, but if under the sink is the only place, then you can get these little plastic locks, which you can put on the door so the door can't be opened. So that's one area where you might want to consider a safeguard to protect your child. Another area, and I'll touch upon bleachers and stuff a little bit later on from an adult point of view. Another area, of course, is the cooker. Okay. And the child will see mum or dad cooking and doing all this miraculous, marvelous stuff, and steam coming up and things are bubbling and all sorts of things. Now, again, to a child, they want to explore, they want to play, they don't know the dangers involved. And sadly, some people, now from an adult point of view, but from a child's point of view, I see so many people when they're cooking, the handles of the pans are facing out from the cooker. So if you momentarily forget and you turn around, you're doing something, you turn back and you knock the handle, you could end up with serious scalds or burns. in the same way, a child may try to reach up and, oh, what's this? And do da da. And of course, they could be severely injured or burnt, if not worse. So my advice when it comes to cooking, of course, is always keep an eye on the stuff when you're cooking it. Okay. But in the same way, always turn the handles so that they're facing inwards and they're not protruding over the top. And as a secondary measure, depends on whichever appliance you have, of course, maybe a guard around your cooker. I know you can buy them so that even if the child was to pull on the handle, it wouldn't tip over them. So that is another area, of course. Smoke alarms spring to mind, and fire blankets and so on. Fire extinguishers is another area. And then taking it a stage further, of course, kitchen statistically is worse. Most accidents happen in the house. You may be a little bit surprised about that, but the kitchen is not only the beating heart, but it's also a heart that has a dark side. And the kitchen is where most accidents in the home can happen. So when we're thinking about cupboards, for example, keep them locked so the child can't pull something on themselves. You know, they like to go exploring and they open a cupboard and they pull a pot on top of themselves or whatever. So keep the cupboards locked. Secure the cooker so that it's not a threat to the child. And of course, also think about if you have a washing machine or a dryer in your kitchen or in a utility room. Again, what does a child see? The child will see a cave, somewhere to go and play and hide. So these are just things to think about in the kitchen. Of course, again, most people are surprised that one of the biggest sources of bacteria in your home, a breeding ground for bacteria, is your worktops. So regularly disinfecting the worktops and the care and so on and so forth is vitally important. And the other thing, now I'll go back to under the sink and all the corrosive agents you may have there. If you read the bottles, it will tell you, is this poisonous, what to do, if the child inadvertently drinks it or if they spill it on themselves and so on and so forth. But there's some items, I used to be a chemical weapons inspector, and we had a type of chemical weapon called binary weapon. And what is a binary weapon? Well, a binary weapon is where you have two substances, substance A and substance B, and when they're separate, there's no harm at all. No harm at all. But you mix them together, they're very volatile, they'll produce a chemical agent, and they're deadly. And in the same way, there's certain substances that should never, ever be placed side by side. Now, normally in a home environment, you of course, you wouldn't have binary weapons, hopefully, but there are some things that should be kept well apart. So always read the instructions on the bottles, everybody, and be aware of what to do to safeguard if there's an accidental spill or whatever. Just keep certain elements away from others. In an industrial world, of course, this would be chemicals that are oxidizers should never ever be stored next to chemicals that are inflammable, because it's just a recipe for disaster. So the kitchen, a wonderful place, and this is where my wife conjures up her culinary delights. And this is why I keep saying that my shirts must shrink in the washing machine, but maybe there's another reason for that. Who knows? Okay, the kitchen. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think you've hit it on the nail. I know that in the UK, where I am now, Netherlands, we know we have stoppers by the door that kids that are placed there by parents of infant children, because we've had incidents of children entering into the kitchen and whoop, they go for what is in the cooker on the cooker, and boom, they burn themselves, and most of those parents end up in prison, because they've not taken they've not done their due diligence for safety, and we're talking about safety in the home now, but we know that even when you take your children out to public places like um, what do you call it, toilet, public toilet. I know of a church that remained nameless where they had a wedding organized here in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Child went into the toilet and just poured the chemical in the toilet on himself or herself, and completely burned. They had to pay a huge sum of money. So even though we're talking about the home, if you have visitors in your home and then there is an accident, it will affect your insurance. And that's what we will talk about again, that you must have, insurance, for, in your home, to protect you and protect any potential loss. But now let's move away from the kitchen and let's talk about the bathroom, because the bathroom is a very, very lovely place. Some of us, it's a secret. Sit down in the bathroom, play music, and read novels in the in the toilets. Some people just go in there to soak themselves in there. But we've heard of people being electrocuted in the bathroom, and all kind of things happening in there, that where people have heart attack and get down and go down into the water they've made for themselves for a bath and then die off. So a lot of things there. What will be your recommendation in terms of safety and security? Because you could see now that what we're doing now is that we're picking it one after the other. For those that are listening to us right now, I want you to like this page. I want you to share this page. And I want you to tell your friends that we're live talking about safety and security, because at one point we're actually going to talk about the architectural aspect of your home and how to ensure that actually when you're building your home, especially in Africa, you could, okay, we have people watching all the way from Osun State. Thank you so much, sir. And where you could actually put safety measures into your home. So, Mr. Roland, tell us about safety in the bathroom and what would be your recommendation to people about things that they should have and not have in their bathrooms.
Yeah. I can only speak about building regulations in the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands, where I've lived on different occasions. And within those three countries, okay, it is illegal to have an electrical socket, except for a razor socket, okay, in your bathroom. Absolutely 100% illegal. And if you do have any electrical devices in your bathroom, if you go to hotels and things, you'll sometimes see these hair dryers and things, but they will be plugged in with a plug that can't be removed, and they'll be placed in such a position so there's no likelihood of you electrocuting yourself. And of course, to be electrocuted, okay, if you're standing on something that doesn't allow electricity to pass from your body down, a rubber mat, for example, an anti-slip mat, serves a couple of purposes. But in the bathroom, again, thinking from a child's point of view, a child should never, ever be left in a bathroom by themselves. If the front door bell rings, then you'll just have to, it depends on if you have one of these things where you can talk to people remotely. But if your child is in the bathroom, then really the child comes out of the water and whatever, and you can shout to the person at the door, just give me a few minutes, and we'll be with you. Or they can wait, it all depends. But never, ever leave a child in the bathroom. Never be tempted to, I'll be lying in the bath and I'm playing the music on a radio or something, and so on. You can leave electrical devices by the door, but never take them into the bathroom, everybody, because water and electricity, not a good combination. Again, in my the toilet in my home downstairs, where if my grandkids were visiting, they're much older now, of course, but we made it so the shelf for storing bleach and all that stuff that people use in toilets, that caustic, very, very corrosive materials, and smelly stuff and so on and so forth. It's on a shelf well out of the reach of any little tiny arms. So that was one thing to consider when you're putting shelving in, or if you have cabinets, as in the kitchen. Make sure that if you have grandkids or kids visiting and so on and so forth, they're locked, or the children can't reach. Temi mentioned at the beginning a tragic story about somebody in a bath, getting out of the bath or in the shower, and they fell because it's slippy. And if you have a shower, then please have a anti-slip mat in the shower, and also outside the shower for when you step outside. And in the same way, if you have a bath, when you're getting out of the bath, that piece of floor there, again, have a anti-slip mat to prevent these tragic accidents. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I also want us, if you're watching us right now, I want you to like this page. I want you to share this page. I want you to tell your friends that we're live, and we're talking about safety and security at home. I mentioned earlier about a multi award winning and global star, Davido, losing his son sadly, to a swimming pool incident where the child must have slipped into the swimming pool when nobody was watching. And that is sad. That's a very sad story, and we don't wish it. You don't even wish it on your enemy. Not to talk of somebody that is so nice and kind like Davido, who I have met once on the plane. I didn't know who he was then. He was very cautious, very understanding, respectful, and I felt for him. But we're talking about safety at home, and the home is not just restricted, because a lot of people on their definition of home, they think it's just restricted to the bedroom, but the home is not just the house itself, but the environment. So what would be your advice to people about the environment, the fence, what do you call it, the gardening work, and even the swimming pool? What kind of safety and security should they put in place when they are building or when they have their homes like that?
Just to finish off about the inside of the home, Temi, where always make sure that you have, when the house is being built, or if you've bought some place and you're renovating it or whatever, to have enough power sockets so you never have to overload a power socket by these multi-plugs. I have some pictures in some of the health and safety lessons we have where you will see one outlet on the wall with one of these plugs plugged into it, and amount different equipment plugged into that. As if that's not bad enough, they've then plugged in another outlet on top of that, and you can have 6 or 7 devices plugged in to one wall socket, and of course it will eventually overload. And like this tragic case in India where there's 10 little babies died today or yesterday, it was a power overload into a socket. So always have enough electrical sockets in your home. And again, if you do have toddlers in the house, you can get these covers. I know we have them in Europe. I imagine they're all over the world, where you just plug it into the socket. So if they put their fingers there, they're not going to touch the connections or anything. So that's another safety device. Think about trailing wires if you have lamps in your home. Is it a trip hazard, for example? Think about your stairs. For kids coming down, is there a banister they can hang on to? Think about how you carpet your stairs. If you carpet your stairs, is it a slip hazard? Is it a trip hazard? Everybody in your home, keep your maintenance up to date 100%. So we'll leave the home environment for a moment. And of course, there is this in criminology where when people are building housing estates now and so on, they have the houses positioned in such a way so there's no blind spots. It's security through environmental design. Let's think now about the outside of your home before we look at the structure of the building, windows, doors, and so on and so forth. Um, you don't have to live in a prison, but there are certain things you can do to deter people from gaining entrance or looking at your home as a soft target. So,
Yeah.
what might they be? Well, firstly, never leave valuable items on display in your garden because that suggests that you're an affluent family, and if you've got all these things in your garden, then maybe they're very nice things for the thief to steal from your home. So be aware of that. Never leave a ladder, for example, in your garden and it's not locked up because you're just allowing the burglar to use that, for example. When you're looking at your fence around your house, if you have a wooden fence, okay, a sturdy wooden fence, whatever height it might be, well, they do suggest that you put a very light trellis on top of it. So the wooden fence, the sturdy wooden fence below, stops somebody breaking through it. But the very light trellis along the top of the wooden fence, it serves another purpose. So if they're calling over it, because it's a lightweight trellis wood, it can't take their weight. And if they're trying to scramble over your fence for whatever reason, they will suddenly find that that part of the fence will give way and they'll fall down. They could be injured. Okay, it's their fault. Okay, but they will make a noise and it will deter them because if they know about this combination fence, then that would deter them. Again, if you are one of these people, you think, I'll have a huge hedge in front of my building or around my building so people can't peep in. Well, people can't peep in, okay, but that means they can't see anybody who's in your garden trying to break in. So the train of thought is that you keep your edge at a level so people passing by can see who's in your garden, who's looking in your windows, who's at your front door. And rather than go for height, everybody, go for width. It's one of the things I touch on in the lessons. So have a wider edge. And again, when you're planting an edge, of course, you want it to look decorative and pretty. Keep it trimmed, but also consider the depth of the edge you have, and what particular hedging plants you're using. When I was in the military and we were on rural internal security operations, of course, we never ever went through gates because gates can be booby trapped. It's an easy way to go through. We would cut our way through the different edges. And a formidable um, hedge, the blackthorn edge, they grow in Ireland and the UK. And these things are so thick and prickly, and trying to get through them is horrendous. But of course, that's a different situation. But around your edge, around your property, if you have something like this with these big thorns on them, again, it's a deterrent and people won't want to go through there. And if they try to, of course, thinking down the road, they may leave forensic evidence. So always think about your edges, not too high, deeper in width is a good thing. If you have gates and they're lockable, then lock them. Okay. And think about the approach to your house, the path around your house, a gravel path. If people are walking on a gravel path, it makes a noise. Okay. So that's an audible deterrent. There's a variation on that, what they call, the Japanese used to call a nightingale floor. So you think, now, what's a nightingale floor? Well, let me tell you, it's a floor in your home, which is a type of wood that when you walk on it, it makes a noise. So again, it's an audible indication that somebody's walking down your corridor, for example. But if you have the gravelly path and it makes a lot of noise, again, it's a deterrent. It stops people from approaching you without your knowledge. Now, again, looking at this, and again, I draw on my military experience here. When you're looking at the outside of your home, okay, try and think about, well, if I was going to break into my home, where's the blind spot? And then try and put obstacles in the way of a potential blind spot, flower beds, for example, so that you're channeling people into a certain direction. And of course, also think about external lighting, which comes on. Think about cameras and the sighting of the cameras, and get a professional to look at this. So there's the cameras, there's the external lighting, there's the fence, there's making sure that you're not leaving tools around that the burglar can use, and you're not proclaiming to the world, look at me, I've got a load of money. So again, if you have a garage, keep the garage door locked until you need to come in and out, and also have a routine. I'll talk about routines in the house a little bit later, but have a routine when you check the outside of your home to make sure it's okay. I would also suggest that you speak to your neighbors on the left, on the right, in front of you and behind you, and say to them, look, is there anything we can do collectively to make this particular area where our homes are safer? And of course, with these smart doorbells and everything now, people know when they're approaching that they're going to be on video. So the outside of the home, it's a place to be enjoyed, but you also want to make sure that it's visibly, it's a deterrent to people. And just going a little bit further on from that, I've talked about we don't want to live in a prison, but consider what a burglar wants to do. They want to break into your house as quickly as possible, as quietly as possible, and in and out as quickly as they can. And of course, in the movies, you'll also always see, the burglars, they're out at midnight and breaking into homes. Then statistically, it used to be that burglars are most active during the working day when people are at work. So consider that. But a very nice thing to have on your windowsills, and if you make it so it can't easily be moved, is a flower box. So the flower box is there. It's it looks nice. You can have all pretty flowers and things in it and so on and so forth. But it's an obstacle for somebody trying to get through your window. So that's another thing to sort of consider when you're looking at the outside of your home.
Thank you so much. And now we have people watching us all the way, from the United Kingdom. We have Nigeria, I could see that. We have United States. We also have Dubai in the Middle East. So thank you so much. You can watch us live on YouTube, live on Facebook, live on Twitter, and live on Instagram, because we've posted on Instagram. So you can watch us on different platforms. And if you're watching us, let us know where you're watching from so that at least we could acknowledge you. Now, we mentioned earlier, talked about stars, but this is not restricted to stars alone, who have tragically lost, their children due to, negligence, either by, housekeepers, food poison, because it's part of home safety. If your food is not kept properly, and certain chemicals are mixed with your food, and we have live from North London. Thank you so much. My sister is watching live from and also we have you could have food poison.
Yes.
Which is not deliberate. You could have kept your food in the storage of your food. I also want us, before we go into those areas, I want us to talk about panic rooms, because a lot of people might not have heard about the word panic rooms because they only see it in movie, but you could actually falsify a room in your house where everybody goes into. In fact, I teach people because I've written a book on safety and security. And I say to people, when you have your family meeting, when you have your meeting, you should talk about safety and security. What about if a lot of Africans are very religious, so they don't like talking about negative things, but we're not talking negative here. What about if there is an armed robbery in the street and you're not at home, or you're not yet at home, or there is a protest? What are the kids meant to do? Who are they meant to call? Where should they stay? Which room should they stay? Should they stay close to the window so they could know what is happening out there? Or should they shut everything down? What do they do? Those kind of panic room, creating panic room. A lot of people feel, oh, when we say we have panic room, you're talking of the kind of White House panic room where, the door is so falsified that you need an atomic bomb to be able to open it. But that's not the case. You could actually have a room that is just well secured with enough things in there, water and things, so that at least it keeps you for 5-6 hours, because we need to talk about response rate when you call on security services. So if the response rate of the security service is about 3 hours, then you need to prepare your panic room in a way that you could preserve yourself in there for at least 3-4 hours until the cavalry will arrive. So I want you to talk about panic rooms. It might not be your area of expertise, but I know you have that wild knowledge and experience that you'll be able to just talk about what people should do. Should people have panic rooms, and how should it come up, look
Yes.
like?
Yeah. I actually know a little bit about panic rooms. So
thank you. I know you do. I didn't just want, like in an English tradition, I didn't want to make it look as if I'm saying you're, master of it all.
Panic rooms. Okay. Just before I go on to that subject, Temi, and I'll touch it, but every morning when I wake up, every morning, and every evening before I go to bed, what do? I have a routine. Everybody, I have a routine. So in the morning, when my wife laughs at me, she said, and I said, no, it's what I do. And it's sort of, again, from the military, in the morning, we all send out patrols and check the area and blah, blah, blah. I'm not asking you to do that, but I walk around my house. Every room, I go in every room and I check that everything's okay. Is there any leaks? Is there any signs of something, not right? I do this first thing in the morning. And then in the evening, I do exactly the same thing. I check the front door is locked. I check the windows. I check anything that needs to be unplugged is unplugged. So I have this routine, and we'll talk about routines just a little bit more. I would say to everybody, it doesn't matter if you're the head of the house, which is my wife, by the way, she keeps telling me, or whoever you are, from the youngest to the oldest. But please talk and discuss. If there's nothing on Netflix and whatever, just get everybody together and say, look, if there was an accident now in the home, what would we do? Okay, and in this complex where I live, there's 6 apartments, 3 on either side, and we have everybody's telephone number in a WhatsApp group. So if, for example, there's somebody, say the man's away, surprisingly, about half of us, we sometimes go away working, but my wife would know. She can just go on the WhatsApp group and she can send a message and she can say, look, I'm home alone and I think somebody just tried the front door. And I know that the neighbors, that she could be reassured. And again, for your kids, if your kids, know that if they're home alone, all they have to do is just go on this WhatsApp group and say, look, I think somebody just tried the door, or I think somebody was in the back garden. And it's reassuring. It gives you peace of mind. It gives them peace of mind. So think about having a neighborhood WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Okay. Think about what to do in a case of an emergency and so on and so forth, and have routines, and don't just talk about what you will do. We have a thing in the military, it's called a walk-through, talk-through, where we'll discuss things and then we'll physically go and do it in slow time. Slow timing, we're not rushing through. So we've talked about if there's a fire, what do we do? And then we'll do it. You know, this is where the fire extinguisher is. This is where the fire blanket is. This is what the smoke detector sounds like. If somebody's hurt, you know, basic first aid is a really, really useful thing to learn, everybody. So if you don't know basic first aid, do so. As part of my
Can I say something before you go ahead?
yeah.
And this is to all our viewers right now. If you're a bit rich in the pockets and you're based in Africa and you have an housemaid, please and please and please, there's an ebook that we are going to produce very soon, which is training that you should give anybody in your house, or induction you should give to people working for you, whether they are your drivers or housemaid. Teach them first aid. Teach them about safety and security. What about if you have an heart attack and you're driving with your housemaid or you're driving with your driver? Does he or she know about CPR? Do they know who to call and what number to have? Because you have them and they call you boss, but they don't have madam's number, or they don't have the number of your children, because, you know, you're living this, you know, pharaoh kind of servant rule. I'm God and you are beneath me. So you must have that kind of induction. So if you're watching me right now, or if you like this page, share this page, tell your friends we're talking about very serious issues, because what I just dropped now could have been the difference between that child that died in the swimming pool or that man that smashed his head on the concrete floor because his floor was slippery. And it's important to highlight for those that are looking at building houses, there's a different tile for a living room, a different tile for a kitchen, and a different tile for an outdoor, and a different tile for a bathroom, for those that do not know. Please go ahead, Mr. Roland.
Yeah, I was just going to say, my wife, she runs a play group. She has her own business. It's a play group.
Yeah.
And in the Netherlands, the law
Yeah.
stipulates that every year, I think it's every year, she has to be first aid specifically for children certified, because first aid for children is different than first aid for adults. If you think compression on the chest and so on and so forth, you know, a young child, you'd smash the rib. So there's a safety factor there. And also they have to be certified in first aid, fighting fires, how to use an extinguisher and so on and so forth. So if you are a school teacher or you run a school, whatever, this is something you might want to consider. It's the law in the Netherlands. So let's have a look at panic rooms. And a panic room, of course, as Temi has mentioned, if you watch the movies, I think it's 2 movies on TV about panic rooms, are very good, worth watching. Okay. But a panic room, okay, if you're going to build a home and you've got a lot of money to spare, it's a good idea. And what should a panic room be? Well, first of all, as Temi's mentioned, response time for the first responders to get to you, so it can withstand that. It should also have an independent phone line. So if they cut your phone line, okay, you've got a separate line with a landline, okay, because mobile may not, it may not be working. So separate landline. If you can have independent lighting in there, so if they cut the mains power, they can have torches or whatever. Keep the batteries out of the torch till you need them, because batteries will leak eventually, lose the power. Keep the batteries out until you need candles or whatever. And it should be substantial enough so that people can't break in. So a substantial door, okay. If you have cameras in the house and you have a Ethernet connection, remember the Wi-Fi might be cut. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see what's going on in your home. You'll know what's going on, but everybody should know. Go to the panic room, and we'll stay safe. And in the panic room, okay, best to have no windows. Okay, just have the one way in, the one way out. You should have something in there to purify the air. When I say pure, I'm not talking chemical weapons now, but if there was smoke and so on, it filters the air out and brings clean air in. And you should have in there some water and some food and so on and so forth. It's not an hotel suite. It's somewhere to keep you safe. So think about what you have in there to keep yourself safe. Any room can be a panic room. If, for example, you're in a shopping mall and something's happened, okay, if you can lock yourself in a room, then you barricade the room in whatever you have, and then step away from the door and stay down. Because what will people do? They'll shoot through the door, okay, and so on and so forth. So keep away from the door, barricade the door however you can. Put your phones on mute straight away, so you know nobody can hear. If it rings and you say, "Oh, there's somebody in there," you don't want to give yourself away. And keep low down to the ground, or if you have an ability to get really high up, depends on the layout of the room, but put as much between you and the outside distance and barriers as possible. So panic rooms, yes. Again, in the tragic events of the 7th of October, a lot of the Israeli families in the kibbutzes had panic rooms. But what did the terrorists do? Well, in some cases, they were able to break in to the panic room because it wasn't substantial enough. And in other cases, they just set the house on fire so the people would leave the panic room and so on and so forth. So just do a what happens if scenario and think, okay, not necessarily terrorists trying to break into your house, could be burglars who wouldn't be that determined and have that length of time to do the evil things. But just think about what might go wrong. But really, my advice would be talk to professionals, okay? Because if you know, I wanted to go and buy a car, I would speak to somebody who knows about cars. If I wanted to go and buy a new laptop or whatever, I speak to the guys in the shop and say, you know, this is what I want. What do you recommend? Whatever. Always seek professional advice and speak to friends and colleagues, and you know, come up with some ideas about a panic room. But the panic room really communication and safety, and something to keep you preoccupied whilst whatever's going on outside is going on, because some people will be very emotional and you want to try and distract them. Okay, initially that's just thoughts on the panic room. There is a lot more to consider. You can buy panic rooms which are built by professionals, and also will have an exit through the garden underground tunnel and out through a shed or in a neighbor's or whatever. Again, it all depends on your unique circumstances, how you would configure that panic room. But again, when we're looking at let's take doors, for example, your doors need to be solid and a visibly deterrent, but a physical deterrent. The locks, quality locks. You know, if you're going to take security seriously, there is a price to pay. So think about whatever you can afford. Go for the best that you can afford. And if you're looking about windows, for example, not in a panic room, I would suggest, but for your home, think about secure windows. And actually, in some places, do you need this window to open? If you don't need it to open, because if it can open, a burglar can open it. But some windows, you just want to look through them. and you don't need it to be open. You can have air conditioning or whatever. So those aspects are, again, something to think about. Security system, everybody. Have a security system, and make sure that you check it. And when you're looking at a security system, an important factor is that if the electricity goes, they switched all the breaker switches, or the breakdown in the electricity. Make sure that your security system has a battery backup. Okay, so it's another factor to consider. The alarm system, of course, lots of different alarm systems for different types of environment, but motion sensors we mentioned, for the external lights, or inside the house you can activate them at a certain time. Cameras we've talked about, so motion sensors, cameras, and an alarm system. Those component parts are some things you might consider. We talked a little bit about landscaping to protect your outside environment, and outdoor lighting is an important thing as well. So those are some initial thoughts there about those issues, Temi. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we're getting to the last 3 minutes, and I just wanted to again share very quickly. We've been live, live on Facebook, live on LinkedIn, live on YouTube. And thank you so much for watching. We mentioned that if you're rich enough to have a housemaid, you need to ensure that you have an induction for them on safety and security for your children. We talked about the kind of things you could do with them. And if you need advice, you could come to us. Our email address is right there, info@trans-intelligence-security.com. That's what we do. We will advise you. If you're looking at building your house, and you need to ensure that you have the appropriate security measure in there, including conversation about how to have a panic room in there. We are security, so we sign confidentiality, which means that whatever conversation we have with us cannot go to a third party, cannot be seen anywhere. So you have that reassurance. But we can advise you about CCTV, use of solar CCTV, so that even if electricity is gone, your solar CCTV can still be active. I would normally say that the lightning for your outer house should be routed differently from the outing for your inner house, so that when there is a blackout or things, somebody decide to tamper with your light, they have independent light in certain areas, particularly in your panic room. And it could be one room in the house. We also mentioned that you should ensure that you have conversation with your children. This is my phone here, right here. But this phone, if you press it in a particular manner, it goes to the emergency mode, and that emergency mode can call, my loved ones to let them know. I call my loved ones, and some of them are watching me right now and laughing, and I'll say, "Is it time for you to sleep?" They say, "Yes." "Have you checked your window?" "Yes." "Are you sure?" "I'm not sure." "Gotta check the windows. Check the door. Is the door locked?" And I do that every day. I sleep in hotels, and I can give you that secret now because you're not knowing when I'm coming to Nigeria next for travel abroad. When I sleep in hotels, I like to move around rooms. I don't like to I don't go beyond second floor in rooms, except it's a highly secured hotel that I know. Because remember what happened in Kenya, not Kenya, Somalia. They did in Somalia, where they were moving from room to room to kill people. So I make sure the hotel I'm going to, I check them out, I check their safety, I walk around the hotel, I looked at it, and then I don't go beyond the second floor because I know I can manage myself down the second floor. I'm not a Superman, but this is just security that I've been embedded in my bone and spirit. That's the way I'm wired. And not only that, I have my loved ones' number, telephones written outside my phone, so that most of you, your phone is your Bible, it's your life. And when the phone goes off, you don't even know the number of your brother, because there are so many things we're thinking of. So you must have places where you keep vital information and you must be able to check. Just like Mr. Roland mentioned, you must be able to check around the house, because you could check at night and find out that a socket is already sparking, and that could be where the fire will start, and before you know it, it's engulfed the house. So safety and security is important. Like we mentioned earlier, I don't like dropping names of superstars, but people lost life, their children, people choke, and then the housemaid doesn't even know how to put people in an appropriate position to be able to, relieve them of that choke, so they die of that choke. People don't know how to do or you can see CPR, so they break children's ribs. They don't know how to even put children in a recovery stage, where there's a shock or there's an accident or there's even a snake bite. So what kind of plants do you need to have around your house to keep away dangerous animals that could sneak in? We've heard of people who open their toilet seats and there was a big snake in there that could bite them, or spiders, dangerous spiders. So you need to keep your house and environment clean. You need to fabricate your house. So those are the kind of things that we are talking about. Mr. Let me give you the last word. Is there anything you want to say to our listeners and viewers?
I got so many things I could talk about, Temi, and I think we should. I think because I think people care about their families, and I think this is possibly one of these weekend sessions we do, perhaps on a day. Temi, we could. I think we
might have to do a part 2, and just for our listeners, next week we could do a part 2 next week on house safety and security. You could watch us live here, 3 p.m. UK time, which is 4 p.m. Nigeria time, 4 p.m. Netherlands, and that will be 5 p.m. in Kenya. So different zones, but you could join us and we'll talk live on this same subject matter. It might not be me, it might be somebody else, handling it, but we will be having that serious conversation about house safety and security, because this is very, very, very important. And I mentioned earlier that people could engage us. Our email is right there. You could engage us to help you with panic rooms, to help you with even your security architecture before you put your house down. Do you know that most embassies, when they are built, they have security meetings and conversations about it? Even in the workplace, you need to have discussion about safety, exit, and things like that. You must have primary exit and secondary exit assembly points that you could have. So if you're watching me right now, I want you to like this page, share this page, and we are actually closing now. But we'll definitely be having this conversation, and this will be our last conversation for the year. Next week will be our last conversation for the year, but we are still live, providing, having a lot of articles out there, a lot of conversation on Facebook, LinkedIn, and let me use this opportunity to thank each and every one of you that visited our Instagram page, our Facebook page, where we post on a weekly basis. We have about 2 or 3 articles touching on issues affecting you in Africa, whether it's Trump or whether it's safety and security issues, ebooks that are coming out. So please visit our Facebook page, visit our Instagram page, visit our LinkedIn page, and leave a comment there, and we'll definitely get back to you if you need our advice. We are available. We have a combined skill set of over 300 years, of people like Mr. Roland, Mr. Chris, Brigadier General Aliu, we have Olusegun, Oyewole, military historian. We have Prince Lukman in South Africa. We have Prince Aderemi, intelligent people, energy security. That's what he specializes. Everyone specializing in different areas. So we are available for you. And home safety and security, you do not need to buy a house before you start looking at safety and security. Like we mentioned, there's a lot that we need to talk about, especially about home home insurance, and things like that. Because if you have issues, I could tell you that my dad is a lawyer, but he actually read insurance before studying law. And there was a time we have an burglary, theft, where people climb over the fence and stole his clothes. And he actually got paid for the theft of his clothes, which are content. And a lot of people do not know that. They think it's just when the fire beat, when there's a fire in your house, you could get content, you could get money for things damaging your house when there's a burglary and things like that. So please, please, please join us next week and let's talk about it. So for me, Temitope Olodo, CEO, Trans and Intelligence Security Solution Limited, all the way in the United Kingdom, and Mr. Roland.
Hi, everybody from the Netherlands. It's still rainy, wet, and cold. Love it. Okay.
So as it is here, an opportunity for me to have another cup of coffee. Until we meet again, do not change your dial. 3 p.m. next week. God bless you all and have a wonderful and peaceful weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.